Hello and welcome back. This is part 3 in our series of videos of setting up your Asustor NAS right the very first time. And in this video we're going to be talking about backup and synchronization, arguably one of the most important things that a lot of users are going to do with their Asustor NAS, a flash store, a locker store, or whatever. Now, this video is going to be broken down into lots of different compartments. No doubt you can look at the chapters at the bottom of the screen because some of this is going to be relevant to you and no doubt some of it isn't. So select the chapter that best suits your own needs. But the other thing I think it's worth highlighting is backups and synchronization are two things that are so similar that it's so easy for a number of users to either accidentally choose the wrong one or worse still, choose the right one and set it up wrong. So synchronization is in this context having both the NAS and another device ultimately having the same data on them either up to the minute or over a period of time. Now that can be adjusted that all the data is coming from one direction and thereby deleting from one maintains it on the other and it keeps growing, or you can have it running in the other direction. But synchronization is at its best when it's multiple users all accessing the same pool of storage. But bear in mind, that is not the same as a backup. A backup is when you have a complete copy of the data in a new location and that data isn't live accessed all of the time. It isn't impossible to run a backup in that way, and there is certainly crossover, as this video will show you. But a backup should be considered running parallel, not running should be considered running separate, I should say, not running live at the same time as actual data. Now, throughout the course of this video, as we go through the different tools afforded to you with Asustor, I do think it's worth highlighting that there are a number of third-party applications available to you. If you go to the category section of their site and go to the backup and sync area, you will see that not only is there Asustor apps, but they have a broader support of third-party targeted synchronization and backup platforms, some of which I've installed, and I'm really only going to be focusing on the first party applications for the most part in this video, because I think once you integrate into third-party tools, unless you're interested in using them or you have already got a login or a subscription service for those platforms, then it's not really going to feel ideal for your data. So I'm going to focus squarely on the first-party tools as much as I can. Now, going by my notes, the first and probably the most useful tool for the majority of users that want to synchronize the data on their mobile devices, their desktop devices and more directly with the Asustor is going to be EasySync. Now EasySync, the first thing you're going to need to install is this app here, EasySync Manager on your Asustor NAS. Again, head into the download section to download EasySync for Windows here. But ultimately, whether you're utilizing it on different apps and platforms, the level of coverage and support will differ. Asustor is a comparatively smaller company compared to that of QNAP and Synology, so it's understandable that a lot of the apps and client services included are going to be slightly scaled down by comparison. But fair play, if you are a Windows user, I'll tell you right now, you are going to be swimming in great services to use. Now, EasySync Manager, as you see here, right now, we can establish and create new folders that are dedicated to EasySync. So, for example, we'll call this one Test Sync, and we can create ourselves a new folder here. And if we choose from that new folder, much like we can with the File Explorer application, we can upload files directly to it if we choose, directly into this EasySync folder. More on that later on, but we're setting that there for a reason. You can monitor active connections if you choose, you can check background information, and of course, activate and configure some of the settings, such as remote synchronization if you choose, and going through some of the back-end stuff. Are you going to keep a recycle bin? Are you going to be keeping historical backups there? And of course, where it's going to live on the system as that data is being collected by the EasySync Manager with regard to the clients. Now, back to the clients, as mentioned, on the download section, you can, if you choose, go and download some of those applications directly to your mobile device. Heading over to desktop clients, however, if you're a desktop client user, go ahead via the download section and make sure to download the PC application for PC users there. Now, to first establish that connection with that client device, you're going to need to use the EasySync tool. Remember, if you want to use remote access, and we'll touch on this later, you're going to need EasyConnect. But for now, for local area network access, you need to download EasySync. From there, head into Programs. From there, go into Asustor and find EasySync and open the new application. From here, you need to click Start, and now you need to access the NAS you've got on your local area network. And if you create a remote IP, you can use that too. So we can see here that the IP there is 192.168.1.216. But of course, if we choose, we can scan the local area network, give your system permission to do so with that application, and it will find the NAS on the local area network for you. Select that NAS. If you're using IPv6, use that. But otherwise, go ahead and enter your log information there of what you're creating for your Asustor NAS synchronized connection. If you've gone for a unique port, make sure you correct that. And if you're using Let's Encrypt or using another SSL encryption certificate, make sure to add that option if you have already enabled it. From there, you can see either PC to NAS, NAS to PC, or two-way synchronization. So in other words, two-way synchronization, the data is always the same. PC to NAS synchronization means that it synchronizes all the data from the folder you're selecting onto the NAS, and if you delete it from the PC, it's not leaving anywhere on the NAS, and vice versa. You can set it up for the PC to the NAS to the PC if you choose. So if we go for two-way sync for synchronization, first select a directory on your local PC. I'm going to select Pictures. Now select a location on the NAS. As you can see, there's our test sync folder we added earlier. Go ahead and individually select files and subfolders if you choose, then click Next. Next, you can choose to set exceptions if you choose. So for example, if you want to make sure videos above the size of 25 megabytes aren't included, you can do that. You can also add filters, such as if you don't want to use docs. You can go ahead and add different filters to your needs if you choose to. From there, it now has created that synchronization portal between the two of them. I'm just going to pause it there because we're doing a lot of work here in the background. But you can change a lot of those preferences, add speed limits and more, as well as reconfiguring in the event that you've set up your Asustor NAS as a dynamic IP rather than a static. But if you are going to go to the trouble of creating synchronization, it is recommended to either use a Asustor Cloud ID or have the system on a static IP, and therefore the identity of the NAS never changes externally. So what that means is at the moment we're using that dynamic IP as discussed in part 1 of this series, but I would do a fixed IP if you're going to have lots of devices all synchronized and or backing up to the Asustor NAS there. So now we've created that synchronization, it's worth highlighting that again you can use that cloud ID identifier if you choose as well. However, that access gets even better with EasyConnect, allowing you to effectively have a lot of the add-on options and GUI access associated with when you're normally utilizing Control Center, but this time rather than it being on the local area network, EasyConnect allows you to facilitate most of those things as well as bolting on that storage and facilitating cloud and synchronization backups via a remote access connection. Just remember that you need to create the cloud ID remotely with your Asustor account and making your way into the EasySync manager, ensuring that you've created that cloud account there for you to utilize with the system, creating it via EasyConnect on your system. And carrying on the subject of client tools you can install on your Windows system, you can also use Asustor Backup Plan. And Backup Plan is a client-side backup management tool. So rather than relying exclusively on the browser interface there and some of the application services on the NAS side, use the client-side tool to start building synchronized backups between these platforms. So for example, local PC backup, call it backup 1. We can again manage a lot of these backup options using the client tool on this side. Again, select the directories that you want to use. From there, then select the backup folders, directories either way, and then boom, you've created that backup plan, which is now in place on your local system. But moreover from that, now create an Asustor backup plan there. So the Asustor backup plan, we select the NAS, we enter our login credentials just like we did before. From there, make sure you got the port correct, select the credentials we've got, select the directory, select mission mode. Of course, it is going to allow the system to retry for a certain period of time. You can set rules for if something goes wrong and whether in mission mode or how many times it will attempt it and how long it will attempt it for. From there, select the folder that you want on your local system. So again, we'll go for pictures, then select the destination one if you've set one up on the Asustor NAS, and repeat exactly the same steps. It's really useful to have these backup plan options with the added option that you can integrate other service providers as well. Talking of other service providers, we can now talk about cloud backups via the Cloud Backup Center. Cloud synchronization and cloud backups actually fall into two different categories on this system. So for example, the Data Sync Center here will allow you to create those synchronized tasks from the NAS onto a Google Drive and create those synchronized portals there, and there's support of other third-party platforms as well. Following the steps and allowing access to your third-party cloud platform, which again could be managed all via the web browser, you can create either those two-way synchronizations or either direction synchronizations as you see fit. And again, you can choose if you wish to add certain prerequisite filters that are more relevant to each of the backups. From there, you can choose the destination path on the local system, and then choose the destination on the remote path of the cloud service provider you have gone for there. So I can select a folder here on that particular Google Drive, and once they're listed, again the amount of time it takes will differ depending on your own personal setup. Click OK, click Next, and it will begin allowing you to create a schedule where you can choose how and when you want it to take place. Also, filters and restrictions as you see fit, so you don't oversaturate your network bandwidth and more. And again, all of that can be set up and it adds it to your existing pile of synchronization. Just cancel that there. And again, you can add more as you go and add some other service providers. But it's worth highlighting that there are other options out there and more enterprise level options built into the Asustor platform, such as cloud backup. Now, this one utilizes, I would argue, larger scale storage, big blocky out there data for you to take advantage of with larger service platforms for business use there. You will have to use some of the internal keys in order to do so, but if you're utilizing large blob level storage for business, your AWS, that sort of thing, then at least you've got that option. But again, it will depend on your own cloud setup, and I'm not sure what the level and depth of this support goes towards. I don't believe there is things such as Google Workspace or Office 365 kind of multi-tiered SaaS level backup there, but I'm sure you'll find a third-party tool that will allow you to do that via the Application Center. Which brings us to the primary backup application here from Asustor, Backup and Restore. Now, Backup and Restore, although we've covered a lot of the cloud synchronization and backups in some of those other apps, this is a lot more focused towards NAS-to-NAS backups, local folder to local folder backups, and USB backups throughout the system. Now, if you want to go for a NAS-to-NAS backup, select the remote sync option. There is options for other file protocol to choose from, but Rsync and synchronization is traditionally remote sync a great deal easier and smoother than most. But bear in mind, this is erring more towards the synchronization we've discussed already, but using a remote server. So for example, you can choose whether you're using an Asustor server or a compatible third-party server, which is what I'm going to go for this example. And we're saying that it's the contents of the directory that we choose on our local Asustor NAS being sent to a destination NAS. Go ahead and click Next and put in the server address. So in my case, I've got a QNAP NAS and a Synology NAS here. Let's select the QNAP NAS. We need the IP of that server that we can grab there, and there is an option to scan the local area network if you choose and give it access to do so. But you can enter that credential there, remove any extra prefixes, make sure you get the port correct, and then enter your own login credentials there for Rsync. Do bear in mind that depending on the third-party server you use, it's worth highlighting that you may need to either attach your own Rsync credentials, or moreover, if we go to the Rsync option there, have to identify which port Rsync is going to be utilizing there. By default, it will be 873, but that's not necessarily guaranteed. And if you want to encrypt the transmission, which will lower the performance, but ensure that data transmission in between can't be intercepted successfully, go for that option. It will now connect these two, and as you can see there, we can start backing up either multiple items or one whole directory if we choose. So for example, I can select the destination folder here, and this the source here, I should say, on the local folder. I can select the public folder, and then on the destination, where we're sending the data on the other NAS, Rsync will allow us to see our available directories, click OK, and then from there, click Next. You can choose to back up now or have it on a routine schedule, perhaps, midnight, 1 AM, when no one's using the system. Click Next and choose whether you want to use incremental backups. So if it doesn't finish, it just sort of tops up. And also, once you've done the main first backup, it then just adds to it over time, as well as other filters and options that you want to add. And once again, mission mode will allow you to say how often you want this reattempted if there's a problem and for how long. From there, confirm the settings, and now we've created our NAS-to-NAS backup on our Asustor NAS. And just bear in mind that you can reverse that if you choose to be incoming from another system if you choose. And again, that's for first and third party NASs overall. So if I choose and remove that one so it doesn't affect any of our future vid, we can choose for the internal backup. So if you choose, you can back up areas of storage on the NAS to other areas of storage on the primary NAS. So for example, if you've got multiple volumes and multiple shared folders, you can use this methodology to send data inside the system to other directories as you go, which may be useful for those of you that are backing up from one area to another of shared storage for different connected users or even services. Then you've got USB backups. USB backups will allow you to either have the USB backup once a USB is connected to either automatically trigger or have certain files and filters that are applicable just to that USB and this routine job, and even leave a USB permanently connected, although I don't recommend that for your long-term backups. So for example, if we want to do a backup from the NAS onto the USB, because you can do it in reverse, select the USB that you've connected to your Asustor NAS. You can state that you only ever want this job to work with that USB if you choose. From there, click Next. Say if you want to do multiple locations from the NAS or one location. Remember, these options apply to both directions if you choose. Select an option, select a folder on the destination NAS. Click Next. Say if you want it on a schedule or immediate, add some of the options. Sparse files are blank placeholder files, and symbolic link replication such as .shortcuts or .dat files. You can choose whether you want to include them or not. Same goes if you want to keep the extra files generated, or if you want the USB to eject every time. And once again, there's our mission mode. But there you go. You've now got your USB backup that can happen on a schedule or semi-autonomously. It's that straightforward. And again, you can export these settings if you choose. If you do a system format and you want to re-establish all of these backup routines, you can actually export a lot of that information at just 2 simple clicks. And finally, closing today's video, if you're someone that wants to utilize your Asustor NAS as a pure target storage and you want to use it for, say, video editing, chances are, as referenced in my previous video, that if you want to take advantage of a system known as mapped network drives, there's every possibility that you are going to hit problems. As you can see there, we've got mapped network drives already on the local area network, and we can use them to a limited extent on our local client system, as you see here in front of you. However, some more complex applications and services and client tools, again, a lot of video editing suites have this issue, they do not play nice with mapped network drives, and they will require you to effectively trick them into thinking the NAS is local logical storage, much like your C drive that your operating system is on, or a physical drive connected to your PC or Mac. In that scenario, the best, smoothest way to do this is to use a system known as iSCSI targets and LUNs. Now, we've covered this in other videos, so we will link in the description below to more dedicated videos to do this, as well as Asustor's own videos of setting this up. But in brief, go into the storage manager. From there, select iSCSI. From iSCSI, go ahead and create a brand new target, or a target in a LUN if you want to build this up from the ground. There's our target name. We can give it a LUN name, call it Asustor. From there, you can choose whether you want to add a checksum header and chaps as well, if you want to enable a password protection on there for added security. From there, once you've created that target, which is the portal access point that you're creating to establish a connection between your client machine and the Asustor, then give your LUN a name. This is a blob of storage that is independent of anywhere else on your system. So you won't be able to access this via the traditional file server means unless you bolt it on via other means. So we'll call this one Asus LUN. Again, from there, we can say which volume it's on. So if you're using a NAS that's got a combination of hard drives and SSD, and you want the SSD to house this LUN for your video editing, make sure you choose the right one. select the provisioning, where you can choose if this is going to be the finite maximum amount of storage or if you're going to expand later on. And that's really it. You can add snapshots, you can change the size of it to whatever size you want. Just make sure you have available capacity to fill it with. From there, click Finish, and you've created that LUN. Then on your local system, such as Windows, go into an iSCSI Initiator. Again, I know I'm doing this quick, but we do already have a dedicated video on this, and Asustor's own YouTube channel goes into a lot of detail too. From there, put favorite target, discovery I should say, via the discovery portal, enter the IP of your Asustor NAS here and the correct ports. Make sure to select the correct IP there. Then, after you've added it, go into targets, and via targets you can add the connection that you want to use. What that will do afterwards, if you're a PC user, go into disk management, and then from there you will see your new Asustor storage area appear with the appearance of a logical drive, just like you would any other connected physical drive. And from there, you can then add it, just like you would any other drive, to your local system there. And that allows you to have a local accessible storage appearing NAS drive on your Windows machine, for example, for video editing and more. It's highly recommended you use systems such as 10GBE to really make the most of that, as well as going into the network manager and changing jumbo frames and NTU up to 9000. But this has been backups and synchronization here on the Asustor NAS. Again, a lot of the stuff we talked about today we've had to skim over because this video would be 10 times as long. But again, Asustor have got their own YouTube channel where they go into a lot of this stuff in their college sessions on their channel, as well as our previous generation of backup options here, which go into more detail on a lot of these services for you to check out and really get your teeth into. But apart from that, if you need further support, go into the free advice section over on NAS Compares. Alternatively, head over to the community forums, first and third party, as well as subreddits we recommend. And if the 3 to 5 working day for a free support ticket isn't going to do it for you, and you'll have to pay, there is a fast track system that will take you through to Ko-Fi, where we can answer your response within 24 hours working day. And there's our free community support options available to you on the builder pages there and via the Ars.NAS Compares forum. Finally, there is our membership tiers that will allow you to get access to our content early, more expedited support, and our monthly Zooms. And finally, you can also get one-to-one personal Zooms where you can get consultation from myself or Eddie to help you with your setup. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next part.